Government shutdown now in its third week. Joining us, House Speaker Mike Johnson. Mr. Speaker, thanks for coming on this morning.
Glad to be with you, as always.
It's good to see you. You know, you've done your job. I know you got a lot of opinions and comments and everything else, but this is like really not your problem. I guess it is. It's all our problem. But you sent over a bill to the Senate, and that's where Senate Democrats are not giving it the go-ahead to reopen the government.
It really is as simple as that. I mean, we passed the bill here September 19th. We did the work. We sent it over in bipartisan fashion, by the way. We did have one Democrat who had common sense enough to not shut the government down. We sent the bill over to the Senate, and now they have spiked it 9 times, okay? They've had 9 votes now. 44 Democrats over there voting down the bill, and they're exacting now real pain for real Americans. I mean, the troops are getting paid, thankfully, because President Trump heroically stepped into the fray here, and they found a way to reallocate some funding to make sure that active duty service members got their pay yesterday on schedule. But that's a temporary fix. And all of these other programs and services, I mean, health services for veterans and, you know, nutrition programs for young pregnant women and, you know, all the things that the government does for the American people are suspended right now. Half the civilian workforce is on furlough, and we're in dire straits. And every week of a shutdown, we surrender $15 billion in gross domestic product. I mean, this is real cost for real people. They're playing political games, and it absolutely has to end.
Mr. Speaker, we're going to have Senator Kelly on a little bit later, and I saw him yesterday saying the way that to end this, it can be ended by President Trump, I guess, giving assurances that those subsidies would be extended. I don't know whether that would be enough. I mean, Chuck Schumer, it's a $1.5 trillion wish list of stuff that he's still insisting on. Here's what's worrisome to a lot of people. If something like that were to happen and the president did say, okay, we're going to get a deal, if it's done without any reform of Obamacare, just extending these subsidies, because it's not the Affordable Care Act, it's the unaffordable Care Act, and something needs to be done for reforms. If you just did a clean extension, you might lose some of your people on the House side, and you might need Democrats to get it passed in the House, which would threaten your speakership. So you're between a rock and a hard place at this point.
Well, this is not about me. It's about the American people. Let's make something very clear. Let me predict what Senator Kelly is going to say on the show. He's going to give you a long, impassioned speech about health care and how the subsidies are so important to make sure that people don't die and all of this. Let me tell you something. This is not a health care fight. This is a very simple funding fight. It always was. They have created a red herring. The subsidies don't expire until the end of the year. We were always planning to have the thoughtful debate and deliberation over that in the month of October and November before the subsidies expired. They know that. They grabbed that issue from the end of the year and pulled it back into September to try to pretend like that was the issue. It never was. Now, let me say this about the subsidies. It needs a dramatic amount of reform if indeed they're going to be extended. Because, as you know, there was no income caps. You have very wealthy people getting subsidized for health care. It was a COVID-era patchwork situation that the Democrats did on their own. And by the way, they voted to put the extension, the expiration date on it at the end of 25. They did that themselves. Why? Because they knew it would have been absurd to try to extend it any further. It has driven the cost of health care up dramatically. There's no hide protections in that program. So the point is, that is a very complicated issue. We have 535 members between the House and Senate. This is a deliberative legislative body. It takes a while to find consensus on an issue that complicated. They know that. So they have grabbed onto that. It is a farce. It is a red herring. It is not the issue of today. Today, the issue is to get the government open again so that we don't hurt our economy, hurt our national security, and hurt the American people who depend upon all these services. It's plain and simple. It's as simple as you outlined at the beginning of this interview. And I hope you'll keep bringing these senators back to that simple point.
Well, there need to be things. The expiration of subsidies is one thing, but the increase we've seen in how much it costs to maintain Obamacare is significant. And Kimberly Strassel, this is a week or two ago, the government mandates and insurance subsidies have created a toxic stew of industry consolidation, inflated payments, opacity about the payments, constrained choices, and the steady erosion of better employer-sponsored plans. It's not as simple as it just extending these. Here's the other thing that I might ask the Senator, Speaker Johnson. Both sides, we know what happens in this country. Republicans have fervent beliefs about something. Democrats have fervent beliefs and deeply held beliefs about health care. So in this case, they're saying it's different this time. This is so important that we are allowed to close down the government because it's so important to us, because we want people to have health care. Republicans have issues that are just as important to them, and this opens the possibility of getting the other side through blackmail to do what they want by closing down the government. And it's hypocritical, and anything that sugarcoats it beyond, I don't see how they can look in the camera with a straight face and say anything other than that.
That's exactly right. And they have voted over and over and over on short stopgap funding measures like CRs. In fact, 29 out of 30 times since 2017, Chuck Schumer has voted for CRs. He voted for this exact measure in March of this year, 7 months ago, and gave impassioned speeches about how it was the only thing, the only option, regardless of all of our different preferences and opinions on legislation. Republicans care about health care. We're not just talking about it, we're doing it. In the big, beautiful bill, in the Working Families Tax Cut, we reformed Medicaid to make it work better.
But, Speaker Johnson, I mean, the president and Republicans have said we're repeal and replace, and it's like we're in a wilderness. Republicans are in the wilderness on what to do to try to fix our health care.
No, actually, we're not. We're not. We've got pages and pages and pages of ideas on how to reform healthcare. You can't rip Obamacare out at the roots. It's too deeply ingrained now, and that's the problem. No one's talking about repealing and replacing Obamacare, but we have to increase access to care, quality to care, and bring down the cost. The Democrats have demonstrated over and over the costs go through the roof when they're in charge. This was their health care plan, right?
Young people don't need Cadillac plans, Mr. Speaker. They don't need, A to Z.
That's right.
They're supporting the entire, this behemoth that's called Obamacare.
Yes.
It's unwieldy and it's dying of its own weight.
Speaker Johnson,
you and I can talk about that for 90 minutes. Yeah. Go ahead.